कंसेंट डेफिनेशन ऑफ फ्री कंसेंट सेक्शन 14 सेक्शन 14 अकॉर्डिंग टू सेक्शन 10 फ्री कंसेंट इज इन इनिशियल इनिशियल रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ ए कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सेक्शन 14 डिफाइन फ्री कंसेंट सेक्शन 14 डिफाइन फ्री कंसेंट डिफाइन consent is said to be free when it is not caused by it is not caused by सेक्शन 14 क्लोज 1 कोरेजन कोरिजन COERCION कोरेजन हैज डिफाइन इन सेक्शन 15 कोरेजन COERCION कोरेजन डिफाइन हैज सेक्शन 15 ओवर सेक्शन 14 क्लोज 2 undue influence as defined in section 16 यानी कि 14 क्लोज 2 undue influence डिफाइन इन सेक्शन 16 और 14 क्लोज 3 फ्रॉड FRAUD फ्रॉड हैज डिफाइन इन सेक्शन 17 और सेक्शन 14 क्लोज 4 मिस रिप्रेजेंटेशन हैज डिफाइन इन सेक्शन 18 और 14 क्लोज 5 मिस्टेक 14 क्लोज 5 मिस्टेक सब्जेक्ट टू द प्रोविजन ऑफ सेक्शन 20 21 एंड 22 कंसेंट इज said to be so cause when it would not have been given but for the existence of such coercion 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 undue influence fraud misrepresentation or mistake fraud misrepresentation or mistake weighting factor and their fact coercion हो गया COERCION coercion उससे पहले where consent is caused by mistake the agreement is void where consent is caused by mistake the agreement is void section 20 to 22 a void agreement is not enforceable at the auction of neither party section 2 clause G coercion 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 definition section 15 in agreement the consent to which is caused by coercion is voidable at the auction of the party whose consent was so caused coercion is defined in section 15 coercion 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 defined in section 15 coercion defined COERCION coercion defined coercion is the committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by the Indian Penal Code of 1860 over the unlawful retaining or threatening to retain any property to the prejudice हो गया prejudice prejudice of any person whatever with the intention of causing any person to enter into an agreement explanation it is a material whether the Indian Penal Code 1860 is not in force in the place where the coercion is employed यानी कि सेक्शन 15 coercion define technique of causing coercion 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 Consent is said to be caused by the coercion when it is obtaining by pressure exerted by neither of the following techniques. One, committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by the Indian Penal Code. Second, unlawful retaining or threatening to retain any property. Threatening to retain any property हो गया. Threatening to retain any property. Act forbidden by IPC. Act forbidden by IPC, it is clear that coercion has thus defined imply a committing or threatening to commit some act which is contrary to law. Contrary to law. At full stop. The section has given rising to few decision. Few decision. The Privy Privy Council observed in X-ray Mirza versus बीबी जय किशोरी. बीबी जय किशोरी. बीबी जय किशोरी हो गया. बीबी जय किशोरी. बीबी जय किशोरी हो गया. रिटेनेशन ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी. डिटेशन DETENTATION डिटेशन ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी. डिटेशन ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी. कंपैरिजन विद इंग्लिश लॉ. कंपैरिजन विद English law गया. Comparison with English law. Undue influence. Undue influence हो गया. UNDUE. 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 INFLUENCE. Influence. Section 16. Section 16. Undue influence define. 1. A contract is said to be induced by undue influence where the relation substituting between the party are such that one of the party is in a position to dominate the will of the other and use that position to obtain an unfair advantage over the other two, in particular and without prejudice to the generality of the forcing principle. A person is deemed to be in a position to dominate the will of the another. 2. Where he hold a real or apparent authority over the other, or where he stand in the fiduciary relation to the other. Nothing in this subsection shall affect the provision of the section 111 of the Indian Evidence Act 1872. Indian Evidence Act 1872. Applicability to dominate will of the other. To dominate will of the other. Consent under pressure. Stubble piece of fraud. Relation which involve domination. हो गया. Relation involved real or apparent authority. Federal relation हो गया. Federal relation. Mental distress हो गया. Urgent need of the money. No distress. Statutory completion. No distress. Burden of proof हो गया. Burden of proof in action to void a contract on the ground of the undue influence. The plaintiff has to prove two main point हो गया. Presumption of undue influence. Presumption of undue influence हो गया. Presumption हो गया. Presumption. Unconceivable हो गया. Unconceivable हो गया. unconceivableness in money lending transaction. सेक्शन 90 ए यानी कि रिसेशन RESSCISSION recession of the contract for undue influence is allowed under the provision of the section 19 power to set aside contract induced by undue influence when consent to in agreement is caused by undue influence. The agreement is a contract voidable at the auction of the party whose consent was so caused. Any such contract may be set aside either absolutely or if the party who was entitled to void it has received any benefit thereunder upon such term and condition has to be court may be seem just misrepresentation section 18 misrepresentation section 18 definition a contract the consent to which is induced by misrepresentation is voidable at the auction of the deceived party. Full stop. Misrepresentation mean misstatement of a fact material to the contract. Full stop. Misrepresentation is defined in section 18. Misrepresentation is defined in section 18. Section 18 misrepresentation. Section 18 misrepresentation mean and include 18 clause 1 positive assertion in a manner not warranted by the information of the person making it of that which is not true thought he believe it to be true. 18 clause 2 any breach of duty which without intent to deceive gain in advantage to the person committing it or in one claiming under him by misleading another to this prejudice prejudice to or to the prejudice of any one claiming under him. 3 causing however innocently a party to an agreement to make a mistake has to be substance of things which is the subject of the agreement. The section include the following type of representation. Fraud. Fraud. Definition intentionally misrepresentation of fact. Intentionally intentionally misrepresentation of fact speaking broadly is called a fraud according to the section 17. Section 17 fraud define fraud mean and include any of the following act committed by a party to a contract or with this conveyance or by this agent with intent to deceive another party thereto or this agent or to induce him to enter into the contract enter in active concealment of a fact by one having knowledge or belief of the fact हो गया belief of the fact assumption of fact without belief in truth हो गया without believe in truth without active concealment हो गया. सेक्शन 66 mode of the communicating or revoking rescission of a voidable contract. Section 64 consequence of rescission of voidable contract हो गया. Damage for innocent misrepresentation